And as always the case, before working on any firearm, you need to make sure it is free and clear of any ammunition. So first of all, we'll take the magazine out. Magazine is free and clear. And as we can see, the chamber is free and clear. So go ahead and take a look at the controls and design features of the SIG 238. The SIG 238 is a hammer-fired, single-action only pistol. It does have a safety. This down is fire. Safe is up. It can be carried with the hammer cocked and the safety engaged to make it ready for fire at a moment's notice. It's what would be termed as the cocked and locked. So basically in this configuration, you just have to pull the safety down and then you could pull the trigger to fire the weapon. The slide lock right there is engaged by the magazine, so that on the last round, the slide lock will engage this cutout in the slide to lock the slide back. To release the slide, you just pull down on that lever, like so. Then the magazine release is right here. You would simply push in on that magazine release to release the magazine. So those are the main operating controls. None of them are ambidextrous, so it's set up for right-handed use only. It does have 3-dot tritium night sights. The rear is adjustable for windage. The front is dovetailed in, so can be replaced also. The slide lock also doubles as the takedown pin. It protrudes on the other side of the firearm, so you could push in on that to help in disassembly. So we'll go ahead and take a look at disassembly. So the first thing is make sure the magazine is out. Go ahead and cock the hammer back. It just relieves and removes that extra spring tension to overcome on the slide. You would need to pull the slide back to where this cutout in the slide aligns with the section, the retaining section on the takedown pin, which would be right around in here. So go ahead and pull the slide back until that lines up. Once that lines up, you can push it through from the other side. And it only comes up a tiny bit, and then you'd have to lift it out with your fingers. So once that's out, the slide will just come off the frame. So we'll take a look at the frame. Of course, we have our hammer here. This is the ejector right there. And this is really about as far as you would want to disassemble this. That's the disconnector right there that disconnects the trigger from the hammer. So when the slide goes back, it would push down on that to disconnect it. That's what keeps it semi-automatic. This spring is what applies spring tension to the takedown lever to keep that basically down so it doesn't accidentally lock the slide back. That spring can lift out. It just lifts out. So you want to make sure not to get that caught on anything, because if it pops out, it's pretty small and can disappear on you. The ejector is spring-loaded, so it is an interference fit with the magazine. So when you're putting it back together, as you can see, that hits, so you have to push that down to reassemble it. But that's pretty much it as far as with the frame. Any further disassembly should be done by someone, a qualified gunsmith or someone familiar with this platform. So you'd really just want to clean out the rails, wipe everything down, and then a light coating of oil for corrosion prevention and lubrication. On the slide, we have our recoil spring and guide rod assembly. And it is a non-captive spring, so when you go to remove it, make sure it doesn't get away from you. So to remove it, you would simply push forward and lift up. So and it's kind of small, so getting a hold of it's sometimes a challenge. So forward and up, and then that comes out. And of course the spring comes off the guide rod. The guide rod has this little cutout here that has to go against the barrel when you're reassembling it. The barrel itself achieves lockup through the squared shoulders on the block on the barrel. And the way it unlocks is that section here, which is the guide rod goes in, or the locking pin rather, would go into there, and on recoil, as the slide goes back, it will pull the barrel down, and then that allows it to recoil, and then it would go back up and lock in. So to remove the barrel, you just lift it up and out. So on this, you'd clean off the rails, wipe everything down, just basically clean it all, give it a good scrubbing. This is the extractor right there. Firing pin right there that the hammer hits, then it would protrude and to fire the weapon. Now this back plate is easily removable to be able to access the firing pin and the extractor, and the way that works, it's spring tensioned, so you would just push in on that, and then this back cover plate comes off. So just get something appropriately sized to be able to push in on that, and then it slides off. Now it is all spring loaded, so once you start it coming off, kind of keep track of all the parts. So there's the cover plate, the firing pin, and its rebound spring right there. The extractor, you can just kind of push in, and then it comes out the back. So that's fully assembled now, the slide. Now on this back cover plate, it's kind of hard to see. It does have a rounded off edge and a sharp edge. The sharp edge is what goes toward the gun. The rounded off edge goes toward the back of the gun. And then of course it is rounded. The rounded part goes in first. So for reassembly, once you clean everything out, put the spring back on the firing pin, and it goes into the center hole, the same, just how it came out. The extractor, once it's cleaned off and everything, you would slide it back in. Like so. You would go ahead and start putting this in. It goes into the grooves right there in the slide. So you'd put that in, and then you need to get something there again. You can use the same thing used to disassemble it to push that firing pin in, and then slide the cover over it. Once the cover is over it, it'll hold it in place. Then you just keep pushing the cover down until it locks back through, and it's reassembled. Once you clean the barrel off inside and out, put it back in place, put it in its locked position. On the recoil spring, put it back into the front section on the slide, and then kind of guide it in. And there again, make sure that that cutout for the barrel goes toward the barrel. And then as far as where you're putting it, this flat edge will go against the flat section of that block. So it's just like that. Then you would line up the rails on the frame with the rails on the slide. And there again, as I pointed out, you need to push that ejector down. And you may need to push it down with something a little bit. There. Then you slide it back. Now, once you get pushed this far back, then you line up that lug that's on the bottom of the barrel with the hole for the assembly pin. And once that's lined up, you can put the pin in to hold the barrel in place. Then you go ahead and slide the rest of the way back until that disassembly notch is lined up with the catch on the pin. And once that's lined up, you push it in place and you're reassembled. You want to do a function test. So pull the trigger, hold it down, cycle it, make sure the trigger the hammer locks back and the trigger engages, so listen for the click and make sure it functions, and we're reassembled.